Yo,
You there, Chris?
scared. You guys all look scared.
Can you hear?
Everybody take a breath. I'm muting myself because Eva's going to run this meeting.
I am? I thought you were going to do it and then I would follow. I would do the next one.
Actually, it's Chair Long who runs the meeting. I'm just messing with you.
Oh, you're mean.
Yes, I am.
You are
Have a
so
good evening,
mean.
everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, Eva, we talked about me helping you monitor the chat box.
Okay.
So people, or the raise hands if people have questions. So I just wanted to ask if you wanted me to just kind of say something or text you separately to say, hey, there's some people with questions, or how do you want to handle that?
I don't know.
Chair
Chris?
Long might be looking at it too.
Oh, okay. Chris, what works best?
Chris can't answer you because she's not in this meeting.
No, you're supposed to answer me because remember, you're going to lead me. So that's why I know what, when I'm on
Lisa,
my own, I know.
what I would do, Lisa, if you're going to monitor the chats or raised hands, is to just at the appropriate time interrupt Chair Long and let her know that someone has a question or a comment. And then
Okay.
if she directs them to share their comment or question, unmute them.
Okay. And well, I don't really have the authority to unmute, but I'm just kind of helping even know, you know, that there are questions there, or I guess if Chair Long is doing that, but I can't mute and unmute. We talked about this at the ad hoc meeting because he was going to be taking notes. So sometimes it's good to have a second person, unless you can give me that power somehow.
Well, I'm thinking that if you're one of the presenters, that you should be able to do that.
Oh, I am? I didn't know I was a person. Okay.
Hold on just a moment and let me verify this, because now I'm starting to.
I can try. Here, I'll try to. You know, I can't unmute Tony.
Well, that in itself is a tragedy.
No, I unmuted myself.
Oh.
Or the other Tony. You were talking about muting that one. They're entirely.
I'm not saying.
Too many damn Tonys.
And then also just in terms of the appropriate timing, would it kind of at the end of each agenda item?
Yeah. My apologies.
Before the board makes a decision.
I'm getting my Zoom confused with my WebEx.
Oh yeah, it's hard enough to do one.
Yeah, I'm WebEx has more flexibility in sharing, co-hosting, and all that kind of stuff. If somebody can.
Okay. You know what? I can just point out that there are some questions, and then whoever has the authority could go ahead and unmute them.
Okay, we're not doing any closed session stuff, so I'm going to get rid of the waiting room and just admit everyone into this meeting. And it says that participants, which is all of you, can share screen chat, and you can also rename yourselves, but we have your picture so we know who you are.
Eva, Mickey Mouse is taking over, I think.
I
Nice.
know. That's the only thing I had. See?
I didn't even notice that until Ed mentioned it.
Just did it right now. That's all all I had.
Oh, it's like a Three Musketeers hat that we used to get.
Lisa, just for the heck of it, do you want to try taking control of the screen for just a moment so we can see if you can do that?
Sure. Share screen. Let's see.
Chris, are you the one that has control now?
No. Look, it's all Lisa.
Is my screen showing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
A portion.
I will.
We've got
The top
that word
toolbar.
on it.
There we go.
Yeah.
Now she's
Stop.
got it.
I needed to stop before anybody else could share theirs, right?
Yeah.
So when Tony has his presentations, Tony Morgan has his presentations, or Tim Moore has his presentations, you can, I believe you can just click on that share screen button, and then you can take control of the screen from, like Lisa, you'd have to step out, and then Tony, you can step in.
Right.
So we're only one participant at a time can share the screen, because otherwise we'll have a mashup that may be hard to follow.
Tim, it looks like you're really long distance right now.
Yes, I'm joining from the International Space Station.
Wow. Very impressive.
Very modern spacesuits these days.
Mm.
It's interesting to see what backgrounds people choose.
I've got some fun ones.
I bet you do, sir.
Now you just need like an anti-gravity effect so it looks like you're floating.
Hey, that's pretty good. Is Kelly joining us from outside? Look at her. You're muted, Kelly.
How's everybody doing?
Great.
Hey,
You look fabulous out there in the sunshine.
I've been out here at the Channel Islands Harbor for the last 2 hours on a Zoom meeting for another thing, so sorry.
Don't apologize. We're just envious.
I figure I'm gonna bring beauty everywhere I go, so I'm looking.
I like that.
yes.
Okay, well, I'm going to mute myself and turn it over to Chair Long. Have a good meeting, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
Do we need to
Thank you,
do a
Denise.
roll call?
Yes, for this meeting, everything will be done by roll call, please. Thank
Right.
Eva, are you there? Can you do
That's
the
your
roll call
cue,
for us?
Eva.
Oh, okay, Chris. I guess you dropped off. Okay, Director Holmgren.
I am here.
Okay. Director Kimball.
I am here.
Okay. Director Menigan.
Here. Hi.
Director Pace.
Here.
Vice Chair McFadden.
Here.
Chair Long.
Here.
Perfect. Thank you.
Is there any way that Director Minigan can increase her audio? It's very hard to hear you.
I will try my best. I've been having to do this now. So I'm just going to be over here by the microphone.
All right. Next up is the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone like to stand, look at a flag. I don't know who has one where. I got the Navy base right behind me. So ready? Begin. I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag and to the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. The next item on the agenda is, here we go. Public comment. Do we have any public comment? None? Okay. Move to approve the agenda. Is there any change or modification to the agenda?
Yes. Chair Long, there's a typo in the staff report for item 4E. The APN number reference in the staff report should be A as in Apple, P as in Paul, N as in Nancy, 040-0190375. And it will be corrected in the minutes for tonight's meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Are there any other modifications?
I had two. And my report back, it needs to be captured that we are doing the integrated regional water management disadvantaged community implementation grant. It wasn't captured as such. And then there were also dates that were referenced when I participated in the NGO collaborative convening, and that was March 31st and April 1st.
Okay, can we get a motion to approve the agenda as stated with the modifications?
I'll move to approve the agenda as modified.
Okay, thank you very much. First by Director McFadden. Can I get a second?
I'll second. Holmgren.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, it's been first and second. Roll call, please, on this.
Aye.
Eva, that's you.
Is that me? Oh,
Yes,
okay.
Eva, any roll call, if you could
Any
just
roll
go
call? It's
through.
me. Okay, here we go again. Director Holmgren,
Yes.
Director Kimball,
Yes.
Director Menigan,
Yes.
Director Pace,
Yes.
Vice Chair McFadden,
Aye.
Chair Long.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. That motion has been approved. The next item up is our director's announcements. Fillmore Pumpers Association. Director Pace, any updates?
Well, that'll be Gordon for Fillmore.
Oh, sorry.
Piru.
Thank you, thank you.
So we had our board meeting on March 10th. Mainly focused on preparing for our annual meeting, which is June 9th at 10 a.m. and it will be a Zoom meeting.
Okay.
I think that's pretty much it.
All right. Any other, sounds good. Piru Pumper, sorry, Director Pace.
No, the same report. We're just getting ready for our annual meeting and selecting officers, things of that nature. So that's coming up here shortly.
Okay, great. Environmental stakeholders.
Actually, Lynn, you want to comment on the renomination of the GSA director for Piru?
So I guess I don't know if we have that paperwork put forward. I don't know if that's formally come through, but we were discussing, because I think it comes up here shortly, that Piru is going to have it's come up with our 3-year term and has to be renominated. And at present, it looks like everybody's willing to nominate me again. So I don't know when we have to do that formally, but that was discussed at our last meeting.
Oh, good. Congratulations.
Why, thank you, I think.
Isn't there another half to that? Do you have to accept it?
No, so yeah, we discussed it and we try to only promote people that are willing to accept it. So that was decided moving forward.
Okay, great. Well, congratulations. And we'll look for that paperwork and we'll get together on that one. Environmental, Candace.
I have a couple. So we had a call this morning with folks from Watersheds Coalition of Ventura County and the coordinators for Santa Clara River and Ventura River regarding an upcoming Department of Conservation grant for a Sigma watershed coordinator position. And ultimately, we're looking at a regional person to be hired to help coordinate across the different GSAs, potentially support grant writing and coordinatory agreements, updating RWM watershed plans with regards to sustainable groundwater management. And that is going in July. And we'll probably be bringing a request for a letter of support to our next meeting for approval. We discussed and started to frame some of what would go into that grant proposal, but we fully fleshed out with the request for support. Then I also participated this afternoon in that NGO statewide groundwater collaborative meeting. I actually presented on how Ventura County has successfully provided environmental stakeholder participation in their GSAs as an example, and giving guidance to other folks around the state on how to do that and how it's working, and some recommendations. And then I've also been working with folks at the Watersheds Coalition of Ventura County and the 2 watershed coordinators about having them support us. I've been convening that Greater Ventura County Environmental Stakeholders Collaborative, and we identified the need to get information out to stakeholders about GDE considerations in GSPs. And so we are developing a webinar that will be open to all stakeholders with a GDE focus for June 2020. Right now, we have confirmed speakers from the Nature Conservancy on their GDE framework and their species lookbook, as well as National Marine Fisheries Service, potentially unpacking their comments on the recent submission of the Fox Canyon GMA GSPs, and getting their input on what their requirements are and giving people guidance on that. We are reaching out to folks from the State Water Resource Control Board, DWR, et cetera, to try and round out the program. And we will be recording that. The coordinators are going to help get the word out, send out a save the date, etc. And then on that note about Fox Canyon, both National Marine Fisheries Service and the Department of Fish and Wildlife have submitted comments on their GSPs. And I'm happy to share that with Tony and the folks from Stillwater Sciences, Bruce and Christian, just to get an idea of, what feedback is coming and things that we might want to, some lessons learned on how to incorporate that feedback in the development of our considerations. And then there are some grant opportunities coming up. There is a Bureau of Reclamation Water Smart grant. There is also a I think it is a State Water Resources Control Board one around water quality. There's also a Wildlife Conservation Board in-stream flow enhancement grant opportunities, and I just want to put that on everybody's radar. I know we're trying to fund those monitoring wells through grants potentially too. And I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. City of Fillmore, Tim.
Nothing to report.
Okay, United Water.
One thing that I think would be of interest to the GSAs is United's plan to release, make a significant release of water from Lake Piru. Tony, correct me if this has changed, but it's my understanding that it will be about 38,000 acre feet in August. Is that still the plan?
That's correct. Yeah.
So that will be of great help to the basins. And I also understand that there's no more Article 21 water available for the state. So anyway, we'll get some good recharge this summer. That's all from United.
Okay, great. In regards to the county, we had our attestation approved yesterday from the state. What is that? Some people might ask. Is our moving into the accelerated phase 2 plan for the road to reopening. So we are very excited. Today we have businesses, actually more businesses opening. We have over 3,244 businesses that have registered on our website for vcreopens.com. And so the big thing today is that retail stores will be opened, anything with external doors. So no inside malls, but retail. So that's amazing, big step for the county. And then also restaurants will be opened with limited seating. They'll still be able to do delivery and pickup, but limited. So that is great for our cities. I know that many of our workforce have been home. And so as that is a lot of water use, I would think, in regards to everything else. So that's of interest to our water district. Also, we'll be working further on K through 12 opening in the fall with VCOE and some other steps. So that's, oh, sorry. So that's some other stuff going on. And yeah, so that's great. Along with that, sorry, I just got some things about beaches. What else? Oh, also on the agenda for the county, it's all COVID-19 related items. I just wanted to let people know that that's a big push that we've been doing right now is the COVID-19. And so a lot of our planning commission items have been going through with Zoom, but nothing has been going through with the county as of right now. We've really pushed things off to focus on this COVID-19 and make sure our county can recover from this. So I wanted to make sure everyone knew about that too. All right, so anything else? I think we'll move on to the executive director report.
Good evening or afternoon. I'll keep this brief. I think we are working to put the draft budget together for the agency. Receivables are coming in well from the early billing. And we have completed grant progress reports 1, 2, and 3, and the invoices. And those were all approved and are in line to receive reimbursement payment from the state. And we submitted progress report 4 yesterday. And so that one probably will be the state's next fiscal year. So we're hoping to receive reimbursement for the first 3 before the end of the fiscal year, and the other one's likely to be later. So, on the, I believe we have Dan Detmer here also, but I'll just say as an overview, staff has been working extremely hard on trying to finish the model on time. And there's been a ton of calibration work going on. And I've seen steam coming out of our Irvine branch modeling group. And so the team has been working very hard to try to get that done and the documentation done in time to support the efforts of this agency. And that's all I have.
All right, great. Going on to, oh man, way too much going on here. Our consultant group.
Do you want me to give the legal update first?
Oh, yes, please give the legal update first.
And all I'm going to say is I have no update tonight. Hope you're all well, and that's it.
Yeah, but you're keeping me on task because I'm trying to find the agenda again on my phone. Okay, great. So next item.
All right, let's talk a little bit about
Oh, there it is.
GSP update.
Yes, thank you.
I'm going to share a screen with you here. Okay, can you see my screen, everybody?
Yeah.
Not yet.
Not
Not
yet.
yet.
No, just you.
Just me?
Mhm.
Well, that's not what you want to look at.
Nope.
Let's try this again.
There it goes.
All right.
Okay.
Got it.
You can see my screen with the PowerPoint there.
Yes.
And we'll do this. All right. Got a slide there in front of you?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Very good. Technology is on our side. So quick update through a variety of topics tonight. We're going to talk about our discussion topics that are coming up at the future board meetings, a little bit on the GSP status, and then there are several other agenda items here, which are already on the agenda in other places. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about those right now. So no detail on those. So we're going to focus, for my part, mostly on the board discussion and the GSP status. So here's our schedule. And last month we talked about the introduction to sustainable management criteria. Tonight we're going to talk about the database development system, the update, and a little bit of a demo. Tim Moore is going to take us through that. We've also got the folks here from Stillwater to assist us in talking about intro to GDEs and the efforts that they're making on our behalf on that particular topic. So looking ahead, the model review is scheduled for June. So we'll have the United folks give us an update on where they are, how the model calibration is doing, and give us some examples of the great work that they're doing there. We'll also talk a bit about management areas, because that topic has been tossed around a little bit in the past. We haven't really broached the subject in any detail, but I think it's time for us to have that bit of a discussion about management areas and how they might be useful to the area if the board so chooses. Then in July, we're going to talk about future conditions and how we might be able to use the groundwater model to assist with that, climate change and the such, as well as using the groundwater model that United is working so hard on to extract some water budget information and begin to use that tool to give us a little more refined picture of what's going on out there. I always have the distinct pleasure each month of giving you some homework. So here is a link to the DWR website where the groundwater modeling best management practice is listed. That's also on your flash drive that you received, directors. So you have that to read at home if you want, or if you forget, you can go to this link and get it there as well. In addition to the best management practice document, I suggest you look in the regulations. There are a few sections right there that more specifically deal with modeling. None of them have a very detailed discussion of it there. But nonetheless, you see how the modeling fits in to some of these elements that we are going to be talking about in more detail. Similarly, if we go over to the management areas, there's no BMP or guidance document specifically for management areas, but it is woven throughout some of the other documents. So it's talked about extensively in the modeling and the sustainable management criteria, BMPs, as well as in several of these sections here within the regulations. It's not every instance here where the word management actions are referenced, but these are some of the primary areas that I would suggest you check into, and that'll give you an idea of where we're going and frame up the discussion for this topic next time around. Okay, let's shift gears just a little bit and talk about where we are, status report kind of thing. So here we are as a general timeline for it, and we're out here today in May. Okay, so this is where we're talking about United's preliminary groundwater model becoming available, and it sounds like they're very close to that. What's coming up in the timeline is you see an administrative draft, public review draft, and then a final draft that goes to the board coming up out in October. So we need to get started writing this document in the not too distant future. I mean, serious writing of it. So what we've tentatively scheduled is about November timeframe is where I call it the analysis pencils down and technical writing begins. And so we got to get through a lot of things in the next few months to assist with that writing effort. Not the least of which is implementation of the communication engagement plan. So getting that stakeholder input is pretty important to being able to couch topics, couch stakeholder interested in various outcomes from the GSP while we are crafting the GSP language. Okay? One big topic that we will have, I'll guess, significant board discussion is the adoption of the sustainable management criteria. How are we going to set minimum thresholds, measurable objectives, even management areas will kind of fall into that category as well. And so we're going to have some discussions on that over the next few months about how we want to do it. What are the proposed criteria, the metrics we're going to use to establish our progress towards sustainability in the plan. So these are some big things that we need to make sure we keep our eye on and make sure those things get accomplished as we go into this time period where we need to get serious on the writing. Now, if this slips a little bit and there's still some stakeholder meetings going on, that's okay. The world's not going to come to an end. But I want the board to be aware that there are a lot of moving parts that are going to be coming up in the near future for this. So what does the GSP kind of look like? Well, here's an example. This is the proposed GSP outline from a DWR. That's their recommended outline. And so I color coded it to sort of help break it up. And you see here in the first section in the blue, that's general information in the GSP. What's your legal authority? How are you organized? What's your purpose for existing? That kind of thing. So that's basic background information. We can get into that whenever we're ready to get into that. That's not something that's going to hold us up by and large. The second chapter here is more of the background information, the basic setting, if you will. So here we are talking about the basin setting, hydrogeologic conceptual model, groundwater conditions, water budget, and that kind of thing. There's a lot of meat in here that has to be synthesized and boiled down to something that we can use to establish our goals for sustainability. The green area here, the sustainable management criteria, that's exactly what it says. The measurable objectives, minimum thresholds, undesirable results, all of that kind of stuff falls in this chapter of the GSP. Should the board elect to do projects or some sort of management actions, that's where you would describe them here in section 4. And then the plan implementation. It wants to know what's your estimate of the cost to do whatever it is you're going to propose in the plan. Whatever you elect, we need to have some idea of the costs. There's a schedule, how are you going to do annual reporting, and then periodic evaluations and updates to your plan with the final references and technical studies kind of thing. So there's a lot of things that have to come together. Some of them are relatively straightforward to pull out and plug into certain sections. Others are more nuanced and are going to take a little more analysis. So in addition to this outline, there are a series of technical appendices that we've identified that are likely going to be created for the GSP. And they cover a variety of things. You can say, here's your JPA, here's your communication engagement plan, water budgets, monitoring plans, et cetera, on down through a variety of things. Knowing that the calendar tends to slip away from us faster than we think it's going to, we've already jump-started some of the writing on these sections while we're still gathering and composing data and preparing to do some of the other more nuanced analysis. So some of these items I would put in the complete category and are relatively done. We went through the sampling and analysis plan comments from United today, and I think that document is pretty much in its draft final position. Hey, Tim Moore, can you give me an update about how many hydrographs for stream flow and water quality do we have in our system right now?
We have about 500 water quality time series plots and somewhere around 175 water level plots.
Okay, all right. So there's a lot of information being compiled and brought into one section of the document. In addition to those that are, I call it into the complete category, there are several others that are in progress. And so you see those in red right there. So we've begun to work our way through quite a few of the technical appendices that are going to be critical for this document. Now, we may drop an appendix or add an appendix as we go along in the process, whatever seems to make the document more readable or useful to the stakeholders and or the board. But this is the basic set that we've come up with at this point in time. So how does this kind of fit together? Our strategy for preparing the GSP is one where we're going to have technical appendices, which we just saw that list. That technical appendices will, for example, in subsidence, will include the analyses and technical discussion on that particular topic. The summary information out of that technical appendix will come forward into the plan and go into the plan area or setting or sustainable management criteria, wherever it's appropriate to go. It will go into there. The conclusions, again, are carried forward into the GSP. Those items then create the executive summary. So we're trying to create a document where if the stakeholders are only interested in the plan, they can look at the plan. They don't have to look at the technical appendices with all the technical discussion and the gory details of the science behind it. If, however, that stakeholder is one who likes the technical stuff, they have access to the technical appendix with all of the discussion that it contains. So they've got the ability to go see the details should they want. If they don't want to go to the detail, they come here and read this document. And if they're even at a higher level, they can read the executive summary. So the idea is to sort of create the document with stair-step kind of levels of detail that will suit a wide variety of readers and users of the document. So that's just kind of a general idea of what we're doing. Happy to handle any questions that you might have.
Well, I appreciate the information. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any questions? I don't think we can even ask questions. So we'll move on to the consent calendar. Any questions on the consent calendar? No questions on the consent calendar. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved, unmute.
All right, it's been motioned by Director McFadden. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All right, first, second by Director Kimball. Roll call, please. Eva.
Okay, Director Holmgren,
Yes.
Director Kimball,
Aye.
Director Menigan. Oh, I think she said aye. Director Pace,
Yes.
Vice Chair McFadden,
Aye.
Chair Long.
Aye. Okay, the motion is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. Next item is our budget workshop. Considering the budget workshop. Lisa, are you on? You want to take this one?
I can take this one, Chair Long.
Okay.
We would like to, working backwards, have an adoption of our budget at our regular meeting in June. So that would be June 18th. So if we count backwards, ideally it would be nice to have a budget workshop a little bit earlier than that, that would allow our stakeholders to hear the material, to allow your board to ask questions. And so we would be looking for something ideally at least a week earlier than our our June 18th, and maybe a little bit earlier than that. So if there is something that would be available in the first or second week of June, maybe the first week of June and the first half of the second week of June, that would be very helpful to have a special workshop just on the draft budget. And sort of the spoiler alert is, it at least at present, it doesn't look like that we're going to have to stray too much from the course of the budget that we have this year. So last year we had to make an adjustment in the rates charge, and we hope to be able to stick with that same course for this coming fiscal year. So we are looking for a date there in early June that we could have a workshop.
Okay, so are you suggesting a date to us?
I haven't suggested a date, knowing that that all of you have pretty busy calendars. So, and I don't remember what days Fillmore City Council meets. Is that Tuesday?
Yes, we've limited our meetings to one per month for the time being, and that would be the second Tuesday of the month.
Okay, so that's on the 9th. Are there any days that would work with this board the first week of June? Maybe, how about June 4th? If I would put a day out, would June 4th be a possibility to have a board workshop? I think we could easily get through the information in an hour.
At what time?
How about 5 o'clock on June 4th? We'll sort of keep the Thursday at 5 o'clock time slot.
Okay. We have a GSA. No, yeah, I could do 5 o'clock. There's a GSA summit run through till 3, I think. Candace, were you going to say something?
Just that the June 4th works for me.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? 4th at 5 o'clock?
This is Glenn. I would just throw this out. Not that I think we have any choice, but for consideration, if June 4th, we try to have a meeting with this group and stakeholders to talk about our budget, and then June 9th, we have the Pumpers Association, which is the majority of people that are showing up, I think, to our meetings. And then June 18th, we have another meeting for this board. And then on June 25th, we're trying to have a stakeholder workshop. I think at some point, people are going to get fatigued talking about this stuff. So we'll probably get diminishing return on people coming to our meetings. Just something to think of.
Well, how about, I think at one time before I was part of the Fillmore Piru GSA, I believe that we actually held our budget workshop sort of concurrently with the pumpers meeting. Would that be something that your board was interested in?
I think we talked about the length of the meeting being a question with now that we having to go to the Zoom formats. When we were able to all be in person, we carried that on. We were concerned in our last discussion of how much material we're actually going to be able to cover and how attentive we'll have the crowd for more than an hour or so on a Zoom meeting. That was just a concern that we had with our board. Gordon, you may add to that if you think.
We did. And I think now if indeed we can carry on with the same groundwater assessment rate, that's the thing 90% of the people are concerned about. They're really not going to be too worried about the details of our budget. And if it's consistent, we may find that we just need to go through the process, but we won't have a lot of attendees. So I'm happy to do it on the 4th.
Okay.
We probably need a motion on that then?
Yes. So can we get a motion to approve on June 4th at 5 p.m.?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
It's been first by Director Madigan and second by Director McFadden. A roll call, please, Eva.
Okay, one moment, McFadden. Okay, here we go. Okay, Director Holmgren,
Yes.
Director Kimball, Director Menigan,
Yes.
Director Pace,
Yes.
Vice Chair McFadden,
Aye.
Chair Long.
Yes.
Perfect.
All right, that motion has been approved. Thank you very much for agreeing on that. Next we have is our stakeholder workshop.
Yes, good evening. I will put on the screen some notes that are part of the board packet, just so we have them in front of us.
Okay.
So the Stakeholder Engagement Ad Hoc Committee met on May 4th to re-revise our plans for the first GSP stakeholder workshop. And what came out of that was the plan to hold our first workshop that would combine the topics previously planned for an April meeting and a July meeting, and that we would do it online via Zoom. So this set of notes just goes through what we were thinking. We came up with a date of June 25th, obviously to be, approved by everybody on the board. And the time here is a little lengthy, but given that we had so many topics to discuss, we were going to do it at the same time as the other public meeting, 6 to 8 p.m. But when I went through the timing, I added a section at the end for a technical discussion of the model. So people who, don't want that technical discussion can leave, and people who only want that technical discussion, can decide when to sign on. We thought Zoom would just be the, easiest, most user-friendly platform that people are familiar with. And so the topics here, which come from the first and second, workshop plans, are Sigma 101, hydrogeological conditions, groundwater model overview, water budget, a budget update, and the technical discussion of the model. And when I get through this, I've got a more detailed agenda that we can run through. Any questions so far are just about the general concept of holding the meeting, the public meeting online before we get, too far down the road?
Nope.
Okay, cool. Let's get further down the road then. So at the ad hoc committee meeting, we had a suggestion made that we might want to conduct a survey prior to the meeting. This would be kind of an extra, outreach to people to get a sense of, what they're interested in hearing about and what their groundwater interests are and how they view sustainability. And the idea was that this could help us kind of refine the design of the first meeting and kind of just get a little more input before going into this meeting blind. So on this sheet here, we came up with some draft questions that we could put on the survey. We would do the survey online, being SurveyMonkey or whatever other program. So these are the questions here that we thought of. We'd ask people, which basin they live in, how they currently use groundwater, what sustainable groundwater means to them, and then just try to get a little more information about what they're interested in learning about with regard to the topics that are planned. We also thought we should do a survey in English and Spanish, and then in the Spanish survey, we would ask if people, feel the need for live Spanish, interpretation during the meeting. I think we decided that we're going to have that in any case, just to see with the first meeting and take it from there. But at least we'll get a little input here. And so what we do is when we have the flyer for the meeting, we would include a link to the survey in the flyer and ask people if they could give us a little input. And we'll see what kind of response we can get. Doing surveys is an additional form of outreach that we can do to get input during this time where we can't, get together, and, even if we can get together. So this just kind of runs through some of the meeting logistics. We've since filled in the live Spanish interpreter. We would use the same firm that we had put on hold for our prior meeting, and the cost of that I think was going to be under $500. So that's an option to have the meeting, interpreted into Spanish as it's running. Meeting materials would also be translated into Spanish, and as with before, we'd post these on the website. People would, I guess, need to, download them, and we can talk about whether or not we need any printed materials for people who might have difficulty accessing these. In terms of outreach, similar to before, we would do a flyer. We'd get a press release out. We'd do an email to everybody on our list, and then we're considering doing a mailing. Unfortunately, we're not in sync with another mailing that might go out for billing, but the cost of doing a separate mailing for this would be about $400. So just a little extra note here on the outreach, in addition for the board members announcing the meeting at their other meetings, we'd like to just make sure everybody does a little extra outreach to see if there's any disadvantaged communities that might have issues attending this meeting or might need, additional help or support with this format. So those are kind of the nuts and bolts of this meeting approach. I could put on the screen the agenda, just a draft agenda, and the ad hoc committee can, go through this in more detail. Oh, wait. Let's see. Oh, it did come up. Okay, super. So one change that I made to this just on my own after the ad hoc committee meeting, we can talk about it here, is that given the format of this meeting and the lanes, I thought perhaps we should have questions and comments after each presentation. In our previous plan, we were going to, get through all the presentations and have questions at the end. So just putting that out there. And again, this level of detail we can go through at the ad hoc committee, but just to give you a feel for what we're talking about. That's what we've got.
All right. Does anyone have any questions for Lisa?
No question, just a comment. I think that doing a question session or period after each topic is a great idea, because people have questions and then they forget them, and or they try to ask them anyway, and then this starts an engagement early in the meeting, which I think is a good thing. So
okay. Anyone else?
Agreed with that complex of an agenda.
I would agree. I think the challenge is going to be trying to not get lost and only get past the first topic. So how to get on to the next topic. If you get a lot of questions, we could get into the weeds. So that'll just be a challenge if we have a lot of participants potentially.
Agreed. Definitely noted.
And I think that is the challenge, because, and I'd almost say if it does that, I think what we found with stakeholders is you need to answer their questions until they don't have any more. If you don't, they feel like you're hiding something or shutting them down, and that doesn't set the tone we want to set. So let me put it this way. If we only got through the first 3 topics, but we answered a lot of questions, I think you might consider that a success, in that we answered and engaged with the stakeholders. If it's going to take longer than this, and we need to hold another one to finish it, maybe that's what it's going to take.
Yeah,
Right.
It's a packed agenda with not a lot of time. Once I broke down the 2 hours, there's not, you'll see there's like not a lot of time. So those 10, 15-minute question and answer sessions could go very quickly. So I agree.
If we've had the budget workshop and then we've had our board meeting where we adopt a budget, we could also consider sacrificing the dollar budget portion of this one. I mean, it's only 10 minutes, but we could either, push that to the end of the discussion if we had to, or we could consider removing that. I think also for this meeting, we do need to have somebody who's sort of the Zoom master, that we're enforcing the setting some guidelines ahead of time on the using muting if you're not speaking, and using the hand raising feature that Zoom has, because we want to respect people's questions and let everybody hear them. So we probably are going to have to do a little briefing at the very beginning on that.
Good point.
And I've offered it myself in the notes to help facilitate the Zoom part, the functioning of the questions and answers if needed.
If you're interested,
Kelly and Ed are going to run the meeting.
Sorry for interrupting, Lisa. I prepared guidelines for WebEx and Zoom meetings that kind of go through the how to raise your hand, how to use chat to get attention if you're having technical difficulties. And I would suggest that we put that with the agenda or invite and mail it out to people. And there's also a practice site for Zoom that you can go to just to play around with it.
Right.
That's a really good suggestion.
Yeah. Chris and Tony, I thought at the last United meeting, Zach did a great job, and I think that position has to be filled by somebody who's kind of independent of the meeting.
Yes.
So not Kelly, not me, not a board member, but somebody whose full-time job is to watch the raised hands and alert the chair to whatever is going on.
I think that's a task that could be shared between Eva and Lisa.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good.
And then, in addition, is there somebody who could be on call? Somebody has technical issues. They're trying to, log on at the beginning and they can't get into the meeting. Is there somebody that might be able to kind of help guide them through the process?
I would ask people to do that. I mean, we have an IT person here, but if you can't figure out how to log into the meeting, I don't know that he would be of help to you.
Right.
What we can do is we could open up the meeting a few minutes early and offer ourselves to be available for if we have stakeholders who have never joined a Zoom meeting or made comments, we could do a little bit of a practice for them.
Yeah, we did that at the start of the United board meeting last week, and I think it was very successful.
I would just also say that I like the instructions you had at the beginning of this meeting agenda. I think that is helpful too, to remind them.
Absolutely.
So I agree. I think maybe I would suggest that we remove the financial budget update from the agenda.
I agree with that, especially considering the budget workshop is so soon after it. I think if we have the budget workshop, then I'd want to keep it, but considering it's so, I think we can benefit from having extra 10 minutes.
I'm fine with that.
Good. Will do.
All right. So is everyone available on the 25th? What time on the 25th are we going to be doing it?
We put 6 to 8, but it's flexible. Well, 6 to 8:30, including that extra technical session. But we could, since people don't need to travel, we could consider starting it early.
Well, there are still people working. So I think 6 o'clock is fine. But I wanted to ask in case anyone else had some other ideas.
I think 6 gives potential participants more flexibility.
Yeah.
I'd like it earlier, but that doesn't work for everybody.
I can't do it earlier. I have a VCOG meeting.
6 it is then.
Okay. All right. So then if there's any other questions, if not, we can get a motion to approve the scheduling of the workshop for June 25th at 6 o'clock, and also approve the proposed agenda and logistics as modified.
Okay.
So moved.
Director, ready? Director Holmgren?
Hold on, we have to get a first motion is Director
Oh, sorry. I'm
McFadden.
jumping the gun.
You're good. You're ready. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been first and second. And any further discussion? Now, Eva, roll call, please.
Okay, ready. Okay, Director Holmgren.
Yes.
Director Kimball.
Aye.
Director Manigan.
Yes.
Director Pace.
Yes.
Vice Chair McFadden.
Aye.
Chair Long.
Yes. So that motion is approved unanimously. And I'd just like to thank Lisa and the subcommittee, our ad hoc committee. There was a lot of work and effort that went into just getting this done, so that we as a board could review and approve so quickly. So just want to say thank you very much for all the efforts. Next up is the, yeah, there's a lot of work on that. Next is the request to waive the late fees and interest for Hobson Ranch.
I can address that one.
Okay.
Hobson Ranch had a check that that was never cashed, and has requested that and basically discovered that their invoice had not been paid, and they paid it when they discovered it, and they're requesting that this board consider waiving the $8.44 late fee for that.
Okay. Are there any comments on this? If there's no comments, then can I get a motion? Would the board entertain a motion to approve waiving this late fee and interest of $8.44?
So moved.
Been moved by Director Kimball. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Director McFadden. Eva, roll call, please.
Okay, Director Holmgren.
Yes.
Director Kimball.
Aye.
Director Menigan.
Yes.
Director Pace.
Yes.
Vice Chair McFadden.
Aye.
Chair Long.
Yes. So that motion is approved unanimously to waive the fees. Thank you very much, everyone. On to the management criteria development, our ad hoc committee. We need to have an ad hoc committee to develop the draft suit of Sustainable Groundwater Management Act criteria.
And Chair Long, this is certainly not mandatory, but as we were talking about developing management criteria for your board to consider,
yes,
and all the tasks that we have before us, this is one that it may be worthwhile to have a small representative committee that that puts together the straw man proposal for management criteria that may seem appropriate. And as we would do that, it might be a good to have that straw man proposal out there so that it would facilitate people thinking about the management criteria, and either they're going to like it, they're going to hate it, or they're going to want something changed, rather than just having something out there that is just starting from a blank slate. You could do that as a whole board, or you could designate a smaller committee to work on that with the consultant team to flesh out an initial proposal. And then I think the idea would be that would be something that we would roll out in the public discussion and in the board meeting for further consideration.
Right, and it's been doing quite well with our stakeholder ad hoc committee. I think that's a great example as to how we can get more initial work done. So I would definitely entertain that and want to hear back from some of our other board members as to what your feelings with that. And so if I can open up the table here.
I think it's important that we do something like that and get some, at least start getting some ideas out there so we're not starting from scratch. I think it would be valuable to work with staff and get some of the board there and directing that. So, and as for, I am pretty sure that it would, the pumpers would like to have some, you know, this is going to be, I think, critical things for all people using the water. So.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And
that almost sounded like volunteering.
Since I've been avoiding the other ones, maybe it's appropriate now.
well, and that's a good point. If the amount of ad hoc committee members would be 3, I believe. So we can get up to 3. Am I correct, Scott?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. Okay. Gotta make sure we're legal. So I hear a suggestion of one person. Anyone else? Thoughts?
I'm gonna suggest, I'm gonna volunteer Ed.
That's not what I thought you were going to say.
Yeah, because of United's, his background in United's management, I think that would be valuable on that committee.
Okay.
If you would be willing to.
Yes.
Okay, so that there's a suggestion or a volunteering or raising the hand of Ed and also Glenn. Is there anyone is that enough for us or do we need a third?
If you're asking legally, 2 is fine.
Thank you. Now, it's just in case any of the other directors wanted to be on it, I just wanted to make sure. We could always add a third if needed later on, but I wanted to at least ask. All right.
I'm just cognizant that I'm on the stakeholder one as well. And I'm just trying to gather, like, from the stakeholder side, how much more input do you think is going to be required on that ad hoc committee? Because I obviously don't want to overcommit myself either. I mean, Lisa, do you think it's going to be as regular calls moving forward?
I think we'll still have the, once a month calls, but they're shorter now. We're just kind of finalizing plans for each of the meetings. Mm-hmm. But I think it still is good to check in once a month.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would think that this would be perhaps more focused. The communication is ongoing and will be required throughout forever.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Hopefully this is a task we can do some summarizing, bring to the board, and get it done and move forward. So I'm kind of hoping this is not as long-term as the stakeholder engagement committee. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think it's more like our general policies that we put together and that initial stuff that the 3 of us had done with the stakeholder engagement. And that it should be pretty straightforward.
I mean, considering
cognizant of the
anybody else volunteering, I'm happy to participate in the management criteria. I mean, especially from a GDE perspective.
Okay, so the what I'm hearing from everybody is that we have 3 directors that would like to be on the ad hoc committee. Could I get a motion to approve the 3
I'll make that motion if I can.
Thank you very much. All right, that's been motioned by Director Pace. Can I get a second?
I will second that.
Thank you. Director Kimball seconded. Eva, can I get a roll call, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Director Holmgren,
Yes.
Director Kimball,
Aye.
Director Menigan,
Yes.
Director Pace,
Yes.
Vice Chair McFadden,
Aye.
Chair Long.
Yes. Great. Motion has been approved unanimously, and you guys have a lot of good work that's going to go on. We can't wait to hear about it. Next item.
I see Brian Bondi waving a hand. I think you.
Oh, sorry, I did not see that. Brian, did you have a question?
Uh-oh, it's mute, Brian.
I can't hear you. That's probably why. Brian?
Looks like he's trying to connect unsuccessfully.
All right. So he's talking, but we hear
You can
nothing.
chat
You could use the chat.
the chat box. Yeah.
Maybe we could circle back to Brian as soon as he gets that worked out.
Yes, we'll come back to you, Brian. Sorry, we can't hear you. And it does not look like you're muted, so I'm not quite sure what the sound is going on. You might have to dial back in.
So on his chat, he said, need to ask for public comment as a question mark.
I don't believe any public comment. Yeah. Does anyone have any public comments on this? Thank you for the reminder.
Looks like he's going to be connected here.
Connecting to audio.
By the way, Gordon, watch out. What goes around comes around.
All right.
It looks like he might be trying to dial in on his phone.
Yeah, I don't see any chat. He's dialing. Can't hear him. Oh, it says check. Okay, Brian, can you unmute and see if it works now? It shows that you are muted. There you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
That was very strange. I was sitting here listening for an hour or however long and could hear you guys, but
could just be
well,
an
I wanted
internet
to make
thing. Go ahead.
thank you for waiting. I wanted to make public comment before you voted, but that didn't work out. I just wanted to express a little bit of a concern about the committee being ad hoc. Sustainable management criteria is the heart of the GSP, and it's the area where stakeholder input is most critical. And so with an ad hoc committee, there's really no way for stakeholders to engage in those early formulative discussions about sustainable management criteria. And so I was going to recommend that you make this a Brown Act committee so the public and stakeholders could participate in those discussions with the committee. It's not clear how this committee is going to receive stakeholder input and consider that in the development of the recommendations for the sustainable management criteria. And I think that at a minimum could create a perception issue. Thank you.
I have something just to.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. I will then, Lisa. I thought the idea of the ad hoc committee was just to put a framework together to begin the public discussion, not to prepare a proposed set of management criterion. Is that correct?
From my perspective, the ad hoc committee would be helping churn through some of the background information and determining how we want to go about establishing the management criteria. They obviously don't have the authority all by themselves to set that criteria. They would bring it back to the board. Sustainable management criteria would also be discussed at least one stakeholder workshop, and then likely at several board meetings as well. So there would be ample opportunity there for stakeholders to engage and be a part of the process. But the idea was not to engage the board in every minutia discussion that was going on, sort of like we did with the guiding principles and the communication engagement plan, is work it down, get it down to something that you think is closer to reasonable. And at that same time that's going on, then you are having stakeholder outreach events and board discussion of various topics.
The stakeholder committee plans for either August or September, probably more September, is devoted to that topic.
If I may, I guess part of the challenge is there's no written description of what this committee is doing. Maybe that would kind of help clarify things for folks. But thank you for taking my comment.
Thank you, Brian. I mean, that's a good point. We need to start somewhere, but how formally and completely is the question.
Chair Long, you're on mute.
Oh, thank you for everyone looking out for me. I would suggest to the ad hoc committee that we just formed to review what needs to be done and then bring it to us, to what the steps are going to be and so forth, similar to what we did with the stakeholder engagement.
I think we can do that.
Yeah, I think that's that way our public knows exactly what the ad hoc committee is doing and when stakeholder engagement is in and everything. Okay, next item is the water well and well permit on the Perez Lane.
I can cover that. The county received a request for an exemption to construct a water well on a property that's just east of the city of Santa Paula in the Fillmore Basin. It's a parcel that's just right off of Highway 126. It currently has agricultural usage, and the party that is in the process of purchasing the property wants to construct a single-family residence there, so a rural single-family residence on the site. And yeah, we had some crazy feedback there.
Sorry.
So there is water use on the site currently, but not a domestic well. So the proposal would be to construct a domestic well. The purchasing party and the current owner sought to get a domestic connection to the city of Santa Paula's existing potable water system, and the city responded that they're not going to provide water service outside of the city limits, and so that's that. So if they are going to be able to move forward with constructing a single family home, they will have to get a authorization to construct a domestic water well out there. As the property looks like it has historically been used for agricultural purposes, it would be unlikely to cause a new burden on the Fillmore Basin. And so essentially staff doesn't see any reason why this board could not consider or should not consider giving a thumbs up for the county to consider this. So it seems like we basically just have veto power.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any discussion, concerns? Okay,
I
is
think-
there, go ahead.
I would like to find out from the county what the criteria they use to authorize a waiver. I mean, I'm just cognizant of the fact that there is a moratorium, and there need to be criteria whereby the county usually approves a waiver. Also, you know, like the city of the city also has a service area that is projected with growth. I've said it before. You know, there's this mega drought analysis, and until we've done a de minimis user cumulative effect analysis, we really don't know if it's a wise decision to approve the wells or not. It's a new well. It's a new water use.
I'll say something. I don't have any problem supporting the construction of or giving our blessing for the construction of a domestic well. I think in the history of the GSA, we've probably done this 3 times, maybe 4. So it's I would support a letter of well, a letter of support, I guess we would say.
Thank you. And that letter of support can state that it has within the county rules and regulations. So if there is a moratorium that wouldn't make it allowed, those ordinances are already in place, this would have to answer based on the criteria of the county.
And we're talking, I think we have to be specific that it's for a domestic well. So we're talking about a small well. It's not, you know, if it's a 400 foot deep well with a 100 horsepower motor, then that's not what we're approving. Or that's not what we're supporting. We're not approving it.
Agreed. Anyone else?
Tony, do you know which parcel on that parcel map it is?
It's the larger parcel, semi L-shaped, that's one I drive by often, and it is on the last page in your package, I believe it's the 3.58 acre parcel.
Okay. All right.
There's a small house on that existing smaller parcel that's right there, and that fronts 126.
Right, on the other parcel.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's no structure on this. This one has been used historically for agriculture. It doesn't look like there's any existing trees or anything on it at this point. Oh, you're muted again.
Sorry, is there any concerns, comments from any of the other directors? If not, are there any public comments? Okay. If our discussion is over to move ahead with this, we would need a motion.
I'll make a motion that we write a letter of support to Ventura County Public Works request for comment supporting the construction of a domestic size well.
Okay, there's been a first for that motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's been a first by McFadden, second by Holgren. Any further discussion? Roll call, Eva?
Director Holmgren.
Yes.
Director Kimball.
Aye.
Director Mennigan.
Well, I'm abstaining.
Director Pace.
Yes.
Vice Chairman McFadden.
Aye.
Chair Long.
Yes. So there's 4 yeses and an abstention. The letter is approved. Motion is approved to send the letter. Okay, that's it for the action items. We have an information item. It's the auditor's reports. Tony?
Do we have Erin with us tonight? I know she was going to try to attend, and I don't see her there. Oh,
Yes,
she
I'm
is
here.
there. She was just muted. Just trying to get some productive work done.
So as everyone knows, we had Rogers, Anderson, Melody, and Scott complete the first audit of the GSA's finances. It covered fiscal year 17-18 and 18-19. They completed the audit, and the audit report was included in the board packet. And they had no audit findings, and they gave an unmodified opinion, which is the highest opinion you can get from an audit report. So let me know if there are any additional questions.
That was well done. Yeah.
Well done. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much. Moving on to the database management systems update.
Good afternoon, board. This is Tim Moore with Daniel B. Stevens. I will be presenting this item. Go ahead and share my screen. Right. All right, is everybody seeing my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, very good. All right, so we here at Daniel B. Stevens, we have been working with one of our programmers and have developed this online database platform that is currently housing your data. And so this will be a database that the public is able to open in their web browser and access the data that's going to be used in preparation of your GSPs. And so when they open the page, this is the base map showing the Fillmore and Piru basins. They're outlined in red. And when they open it, it'll look like this. So here are all of the different monitoring points. Most of these are water wells. A handful of these can see. Is everybody able to see my mouse if I'm pointing at things? I see some head nods.
Yes.
That's good. All right, very good. So this black triangle there, that's actually a surface water monitoring point. But as I mentioned earlier, most of these are water wells. There are currently 1,005 water wells in the database, and these are all historical wells. So a number of these no longer exist, but it's a combination of active and historical wells. And then there are 47 surface water monitoring points as well. You'll see all of these green circles, a number of them, like this one here, has a number 11. What that is signifying is that there's 11 monitoring points kind of embedded under that. And so if you zoom in, you see those numbers are going down until you eventually see the individual monitoring points. So that's just a clustering technique that when you're zoomed out helps for visualizing the monitoring points. So
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, certainly, Dr. McFadden.
Do those circles obscure some of the other features or some of the other symbols?
They do until you zoom in.
Okay.
So are you able to see me doing that on my screen? How the circles went away and now you can see the individual monitoring points?
Okay, good.
So we tried on an earlier version of this, we tried some different techniques, and this seemed to be kind of the best one just for our size basin, so this clustering technique. So There are, as far as water level observations currently in your database, there's 34,839. And the data is current through calendar year 2018 at this time. There are 7,205 groundwater quality observations, and then another 3,149 surface water observations. In addition, there's 28,970 groundwater production observations. So there is quite a bit of data contained within this database at this point. Also, I'll show you kind of how all this stuff links to the different wells and monitoring points here in a little bit. But also the other major piece of data that's included in here are well completion reports. And so we don't have one for every well, but we have a lot of them. So there's 664 wells that actually have the well completion report. All right, so we'll start kind of up here in the upper right-hand corner. There's this Zoom to function, and this does a couple of things. You see this checkbox here. This is a linking mechanism that allows you to select, to pare down this list that's contained in here to just wells that are within the Fillmore Basin. So let's see, if you were to, well, my list, there's my list. So these are just wells that are here in the Fillmore Basin, and then if I come back up and I select the Piru Basin, then that list changes. So that's kind of just what that little checkbox does. There's a number of tools up here. So these two plus and minus signs are just zoom tools. You can change the base map. We have quite a lot of different base map options. I'm using this imagery one right now. There's this return to initial extent. So if you get zoomed in real far, this allows you to zoom back out. There's some querying tools kind of built in for selecting monitoring points. This one allows you to query by a certain radius that the user defines. This is another one that allows you to just do a polygon. So watch what happens there on the left-hand side. So now you get the list of those monitoring points there by using that tool. There's also just a measure distance tool that just allows you to say, well, how far is this well from this well? And then you get that distance. And so these are just some tools that are going to allow the public to do a little bit of analysis if they so choose using these data. So that's that. Now we're going to move over here to this map layers. There's two main categories. We have the main map layers, and then we have some additional layers. We'll start with the main map layers. So here you're able to turn on and off the basins, turn off the monitoring points so you can see that. So that's that. You can actually turn these streams off as well. The default is just for it to be visible all the time. So within the monitoring points, there's some filtering capabilities that are built in. And so, for example, if you wanted to just show active wells, you can filter on that. And if you wanted to filter by type, turn these back on, turn that off. And if you wanted to just show agricultural wells, you can do that. And these filters are actually stackable. So if you wanted to show active agricultural wells, you can do that as well. So there's a lot of different ways that you're able to choose which data or which monitoring points you're displaying on the map. So let's go to this filter by other. This is a very useful tool. This allows, make sure I still have all my points on here. Yep. All right. So if you wanted to show just monitoring points that have water quality samples associated with them, you can do that so that you know which wells to click on in a particular area you might be interested in. You can then do the same thing with water level, groundwater production. And then lastly, there's this neat tool for the wells that we have well construction screened interval information. You can actually do some querying based on that. So for example, if you wanted to see just wells that are shallower than 200 feet, you can do that. And so you see a number of the other wells drop away. So that's that filtering, and you can actually do a more complicated query where you actually select a top screen and a bottom screen interval and just get wells that fall within that category. So that's that. And then we have a number of additional layers. I'm going to turn the monitoring points off for this so you can see them. So there's some administrative boundaries, just to give you an idea of some of the things that are contained in there. I've got a county's line and some different things in there. We have a number of cropping layers in here. This 2014 and 2016, the first two there are what's available through DWR. And then I went and asked the Ventura County Ag Commissioner for their crop mapping that they maintain, and I asked them for every other year, as far back as I could go, which was 2011. And so just as an example, this is showing the 2011 mapping, and so you can zoom in on the parcels, and I set it so that if you zoom in far enough, you actually get kind of what the different crops are, remembering that this is 2011 and that this aerial isn't changing with it. So it's not a 2011 aerial to go with the 2011 cropping, which can just be a little confusing when you're thinking about this.
Which aerial did you use, Tim?
The year on this one, I can't tell you exactly what year it is. Just from my knowledge out there, it's a fairly recent one within the last couple of years. So that's that. So there's some disadvantaged communities layers there. There's some geology layers. For example, here's a fault coverage. You know, this dotted green line down here is the Oak Ridge Fault. So that's that. There's some natural communities layers. The first two are the DWR layers, and then Stillwater Sciences has their 2016 mapping, which I'm not going to talk about now because that's going to be discussed in the next agenda item. And then there's also some watersheds and some streams coverages. So so you can actually turn on and off this stream coverage. So that's that. I also included some links away from this site. So this is a link that shows the data available through Ventura County's hydrodata server. Did that work? Are you guys able to see that? Just nod ahead. Okay. So there's that. So within this site, there's some rainfall data, and then there's some stream flow and some evapotranspiration data. There's also a link to the USGS website. And within the USGS website, you're able to do these queries in the URL that allow you to just select I just selected here the sites that are nearby Fillmore and Piru. So there's a few sites that are outside, but these are kind of the ones that are specific to our area here. So that's that. I should also, I think I failed to point out earlier within the monitoring points that you'll notice that some of these monitoring points spill outside of the Fillmore and Piru basins, and there's some down here in the Santa Paula Basin. But we did that just kind of for assessing boundary conditions. So I think it's useful to have some of these information in here that are a little outside the boundaries there. So that's that. So now let's select a specific well, and we'll take a look at that. So just put that in here. This is one that I pre-selected. I think Director Pace will probably recognize this yard. This is Wearing Waters property, and this is one of their wells. So we zoomed in there, I clicked on it, and now over here we get, you can click on the View Extended Details. And you have a number of tabs here. There's this General Info tab right here that gives you some basic information. You get some construction information, and then also there's some notes that are specific to the wells as well here. And then here is water quality, and so within this we're plotting the data, and so let's just pick chloride for example, and so you get a graph of the available chloride data, and this figure here can be exported. So there's these 3 lines here, and so you're able to download this graph if you like using this, or if you want to download the data and play with it yourself, you have these functions down here. So you could download all the data for this well there. And then we've got something similar for water level. So here's the hydrograph for groundwater elevation. We also have the ability to plot this as depth to groundwater below land surface. And I'll just point out that we're only able to do depth to land surface below land surface where we have a good land surface elevation. So not all wells have the ability to plot depth to groundwater, but most of the ones, and especially the wells with the long records that United has monitored for a long time, we're able to do that. And then groundwater production, we're doing something similar. I didn't show this earlier, but all of these time series plots, you're able to zoom in on them. Actually, maybe not on that one. There we go. So you can zoom in, and then you can go back to reset. You can turn on and off the different time series plots there. So if you wanted to see, for example, just total usage, you can turn off the municipal and the agriculture and just look at total. And then the last tab here is the well completion report under documents for this well. So that's kind of just in a quick summary, that's kind of the available data. So we've been kind of beta testing this database for the last month or so. And so I think we've worked out most of the kinks. This is, I should probably point out, this is a living database. And so it's current right now through calendar year 2018. There are some data from 2019, but pretty much it's a complete data set through 2018. Over periodically, as additional data become available, this database can be updated to house that data as well. And I think our plan right now is, I think we're pretty much ready to send out a link to this. So this is hosted online, and so I believe following this meeting, I can send Ava the link, and she can send that out to the board of directors, and all of you can have, let's say, 2 weeks to play with it, see if there's any issues or concerns, and you can send those directly to me if you like. I'll include my email address with the link that I'll send to Ava in case you find any bugs or anything in there. And I think with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Tim, I've got a question.
Mm-hmm.
Is all the information that you can find in this tool available publicly outside of this?
It will be. That's the intention. So right now it's in a beta version, but
my question is,
yes.
Is everything that you're referencing here available outside this? Is this all public information?
Some of these data are not available in other places. So we believe it's all public data, but it's not necessarily easily accessible publicly at this point. Most of it is, but not all of it.
I guess the concern is that we're not infringing on privacy issues here in some way. I haven't looked at it enough to really understand what that might be, but that'll be a concern that I'm sure that stakeholders will have.
Right. And another consideration is that according to Sigma, any data that's used in preparation of the plan needs to be publicly available. So we need to kind of consider that as well. Is you can't kind of have this secret data that you're using to prepare your GSP that the public doesn't have access to. So we haven't released this publicly yet, and certainly play around with it, and we can kind of revisit some of those concerns that you may have.
Okay, so no one should share this information with others then? Is that what you're saying?
This link is just, my intention is for it to just go to board members at this point.
Thank you for that clarification.
Tim, but I think I'm not sure if it was clear, but you said that essentially all this information, all the raw data that you have in this database was achieved. I mean, it was gathered as publicly available information. It wasn't easy it wouldn't be easy for your average person to get, but it was all public information.
Correct. Yeah. And the vast majority of these data that's in here came from United Water and then from the county.
Okay, I guess that's the answer that I was looking for or hoping for. That there's information that private individuals, companies, agencies would consider proprietary that's being exposed here.
Right.
But that is the thing about Sigma. I mean, I don't think well completion reports are or have been publicly available, if I remember right. And
that's changed. They now are public information.
Okay.
They're actually published on DWR's website.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only thing that has to be redacted is owner information.
Owner information, right. And production information, has United made that publicly available if somebody asks for how much is pumped out of a given well?
It's displayed graphically in a number of published reports, but it's not tabulated anywhere by well like it is here.
Right. So there is, I mean, we don't have a choice under Sigma. We need to use this data. And by Sigma, we have to make it public, but it's going to be a sensitive issue that we're going to have to work through with stakeholders, I expect.
Yeah, no, that's certainly understood, and that's why we kind of decided to do this soft release that we're doing here.
And there's no, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, the well owner's information is not in this database.
Correct.
So the information of having like the production information, I think clearly we need to have production information as a whole. Do we need it specifically out of each well to determine our GSP? Or is it enough to say this is the collective amount that comes out of this basin and not needing the detail of that particular well is what's producing a certain amount? That would just be a question if that information is not really publicly available in that level detail, do we want to start making it available? Do we need it at that level to make our decisions?
Tony Morgan, jump.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. So in the GSP analysis effort that we're going to go through or are going through, we're going to need some information about where the pumping is occurring within the basin, what hydrostratigraphic unit, in other words, what depth, what interval is that pumping coming from, and how much is coming from those intervals. So I think, yeah, we're going to need that information. How we present that in the GSP might not be at this level of detail. However, this level of detail is necessary backup for DWR should they request it.
Mm-hmm. And I would also point out that this is these data are a modeling input into United's modeling efforts that are going to be used in the GSP.
I would be very we have a job to do, but we have to be very cautious.
Mhm.
There are pumpers out there who, if they saw what they thought was proprietary information posted publicly that was not accessible any other way, the first people we will hear from will be their lawyers. And that will snarl up the whole process.
Just for perspective, this kind of database is in multiple other GSAs. They're doing similar things. From that perspective, this kind of level of detail is not unique to what we see in other basins. So other folks have wrestled with that issue of, is that individual pumping data proprietary or not? And they've made the decision that they're going to release it. I'm not saying that guides your discussion. I'm just providing that for context.
I'm suggesting sensitivity and caution. I think I could tell you a half dozen pumpers who would be very upset if they saw specific numbers from their wells posted.
Can we get is it appropriate to get a legal opinion on this from our counsel to whether or not this is necessary or anything as far as we're moving forward before any of this gets released?
I think that's very appropriate.
Yeah, I'm happy to do so. And remember that once information is released to directors, unless it is somehow exempt from disclosure or protected under the Brown Act, it is a public record. Tim, would this still be considered something that is in draft form?
Yes, we're still considering this a beta version.
Okay, so there are protections for quote unquote documents that are not in their final form, but I'm happy to look at this issue and report back to the board on it.
I would suggest that we do that before any of this is released to any of us.
Yes.
And to Director McFadden's comments about sensitivity, I think we need to be aware of that, and maybe we need to do some groundwork, maybe even at the workshop, and start the process. But on the other hand, I think that making this available and public is part of the openness, part of the transparency that goes into managing this basin. And I hope that we can convince all the stakeholders that it's an important part of it, without them calling their lawyers.
Well, let's get a legal opinion and have that goal in mind, but proceed cautiously.
Yeah, and Scott, I think, the State Water Resource Board requires certain reporting more so than it has in the past. So there is also some new legislation. It's not coming to mind the actual law right now, but I think if we can reference that there have been changes and requirements that have been brought forward in more recent years, then we can show that it's not really the transparency of the data. Personal data is not a request from us, the GSA, but is really coming from DWR and State Water Resource Control Board. But I also echo Gordon's comment. I think we can definitely frame this in we being transparent with the information, and there might be some understanding the sensitivity. I think by being transparent, that can also be in our favor.
I would add that it looks good. The data looks like it's a lot of information there, and it looks like a very useful tool. So I would say that looks good. As long as we don't have any issues with sensitive information, I think it's going to be a valuable piece.
I would agree with Glenn. That's could be the most comprehensive data pack map I've ever seen, and I wish I had that 10 years ago. That's a cool map, but just let's be careful.
Yeah, most definitely.
Transparent, but carefully.
So at this point in time, we will not release the link to the directors until we hear back from legal counsel. Is that our direction?
I would agree with that.
Okay.
I would too. Be cautious.
Transparency needs to be balanced with privacy.
Correct. Tim, is there any other information that you need from our board members on this?
No, I think that that's very helpful, and I think down the line, if we get permission from legal to send it out to the board, you know, I'll look for feedback from individual board members on potential modifications and updates.
Okay, great. I mean, well done. That's a lot of work going on. Okay, moving on to the groundwater dependent ecosystem. It's an information item. Oh wait, hold on. Is there any public comment on that last item? I don't see any, no hands raised or anything. Okay, so the groundwater ecosystem, we can go.
Okay, good evening, everyone. It's always fun to talk about ecology right when everyone's right at the end of the slate, when everyone's ready to eat their dinner. So I'll try and be brief. And let me share my screen. By the way, introducing myself, I'm Christian Broderick from Stillwater Sciences, and I'm a geomorphologist, but I've been one of the leads in our groundwater dependent ecosystem work. And also on the call is Bruce Orr, who I think many of you know, who's been working in the basin since 2002 or something like that. And there's a picture of Bruce just popped up on my screen. And he's our ecological expert. So I'm good at like broad scale plant water interactions, but if you have specific questions about things, I will punt it to Bruce, who is an expert at those things. Okay, let me try sharing my screen. Let's see here. Let me know if you can see anything. Right now, I just see my background. It says I'm sharing screen.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, great.
Seeing your PowerPoint.
Awesome. All right, so I think you've actually seen these slides before from Tony last year, but I just wanted to give a general overview of our approach, and then I was going to show you the map, which you've seen a little hint of already. So what are groundwater dependent ecosystems? They're ecological communities or species that depend on groundwater emerging from aquifers or on the groundwater occurring near the ground surface that for some part of their life history. So we are mostly talking today about, we're going to be talking today about plants, but other GDEs include, and the birds that, you know, you could also talk about the birds that use those plants, talk about fish, but we're mostly going to focus on plants today. And we're mostly, in this basin, we're mostly going to be focusing on things along the river. So what do we do? So this is taken from, I forgot to write an attribution on here. This is from a TNC guidance document. But what you take the best available vegetation mapping you can get, which in our case, we're very lucky that we have a very high quality map for most of the places where groundwater dependent vegetation exists. And that's a map that Stillwater Sciences did in 2016. It's actually more up to date than what's on the DWR website. And so that's the highest quality map we can get. We also have some, on the fringes of the basin, we use this CalVeg mapping, which is a little lower quality. So you start with that vegetation map, and then you ask which of these plants are potentially dependent on groundwater. And so those are called phreatophytes. And so we just cut through the vegetation mapping and say, all right, which species are known to be phreatophytes? And that is when we do that, we've generated a potential groundwater dependent ecosystem map. So that is just based on the groundwater, the plant species, and it doesn't have any, we haven't taken groundwater or anything, groundwater elevations or anything else into account. And the complication in this is that those species, they can rely on groundwater, but they can also rely on surface water too. And so we're gonna have to do a little bit of art as well as mixed in with our science. And that art comes in here in this step, where you have to consider other things. And we're gonna consider, what we're mostly gonna consider is groundwater levels and outputs from a groundwater model. So I'll show you in a few minutes that there's relatively sparse groundwater level data that is shallow enough to be potentially interacting with groundwater dependent vegetation. So that data is relatively sparse. And so we're gonna be relying on the United model once it comes out to do this next step, which is where we use rooting depth and the depth to groundwater to basically include or eliminate different vegetation species. So the general guidance is you use 30 feet, and that accounts for some uncertainty both in the depth of roots, which is generously not all that well known, or at least not specifically known, I don't think. And you also can, you can adjust that in places where it's vegetation that you know has much shallower roots, if it's a small shrub or something like that. And so that's going to be the next step that hasn't happened yet. And so the maps I'm going to show you today don't include that. So that's our next step. And then this is just shows you what the data we're using is. So the dark green here, which is along all the creeks, is from Stillwater's 2016 map based on 2016 aerial imagery. That was field checked by Bruce and others walking around the basin. And then the light green is the CalVeg data, and that's slightly lower quality. It doesn't tell you as much about the species, and the spatial resolution is not as great. So we'll be exploring that a little bit too. Okay. So now I am going to get out of PowerPoint and go to the map. Are there any questions so far?
I have a question. I think, isn't it true that rooting depth of different species is a large part dependent on the geology, the strata that's underneath it?
Sure. So, you know, the best rule of thumb I've heard for the rooting depth is what the elevation of the groundwater is. Like, so that's where the geology matters a lot. And so if you were to think about cottonwoods, for example, their rooting depth is generally, you know, what we use is a sort of maximum rooting depth because it's hard to justify using something shallower because we usually don't have that information. So Bruce might want to say something more if there's a geology correction we should do, but most of the places we're looking here are alluvial soils, so the geology is relatively uniform.
Well, you also have species like alnus or salix that could have roots extending out into water if there's surface water available, or they could be staying down into the soil, into the strata.
Absolutely, they can. So that's true of almost all of Fremont, of the cottonwood species we're looking at, and it's true of the willows. So both of them could be tapping either groundwater or surface water. And there are places where you see that like along Sespe Creek, the cottonwoods are right up next to the creek, right? Which tells you probably maybe it's not tapping groundwater there. But if you go down, and I'll show you in the map, there are a few places where, actually I can just like point them out here. Like there are a couple places where there are much broader forests here at the downstream end of the basin, near the fish hatchery and near Piru Creek, and then at the very upstream end of the basin. The salix and cottonwoods are much wider than they are. They're not just a narrow strip. And I sort of tend to think of the places that are tapping the actual surface water as just being that narrow strip along. along the creek.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hopefully, I think Bruce agrees with me on that since I think he taught me that. Okay, so let me go to the map. And you can see the basins outlined. Let's see if I can get this. This is fine. All right, so there's the outline of the basins, and you can see those broader forests. You can see a little better in these pictures here. You can see a sort of broad forest here, and I'm going to turn on. Let's see if I can get this clicked on. There we go. So let's turn on our vegetation map, which is this here. And if we do that, we can go look at this very green vegetation here, and we see that that is populous, which is a cotton. And then you can keep clicking around, and you can click around and it'll tell you what vegetation species it is to address your question if you're curious. So here we've got a salix, which is a willow, and so there's a lot of woody species here. If you go to other places in the basin, you'll notice that it's much less vegetated. And so if we click here, that's Baccharis, which is mule fat, which takes up about something like about half of this lower basin here, or half of the places along the river that Stillwater mapped is Baccharis. And you can tell that it's much less densely vegetated there. And this pattern of cottonwood willow forest and Baccharis forest, and here's some more cottonwood willow, and there's some arundel up there, and then more up here, has probably been in place for a really long time. So Bruce was a co-author on a paper that looked at the historical ecology of the Santa Clara River, and these dense forests are places where you have rising groundwater, and have had that historically for a very long time. Okay, so
may I ask a question?
Please.
I think though, whatever it is, you've got any map is a snapshot in time. If you look historically, I'm sure you have a tendency to have certain species in certain areas, but for example, after the floods of 2005, there were some pretty broad areas that were just wiped clean and then reestablished over time. So it's certainly an evolving system.
You couldn't speak about something I care about more than that. Like that's like the heart of my interest. I'll let Bruce talk about that because he did mapping in 2005 and in the recent mapping.
Right, so the earlier work that Stillwater did for the Coastal Conservancy involved mapping the lower river Ventura County portion right after the 2005 flood event. So it's definitely a challenge. We first got out there, we had 2004 base map imagery, and the system was so altered that we adjusted our plans and did more of a field-based effort until we could get updated imagery post that El Nino flood event. And since then, Stillwater and our academic collaborators have been continuing to work in the system and look at the changes over time as the system's recovered from those big scouring reset events from the 2005 flood. So yeah, we're definitely very, very interested in understanding the dynamics of the system and the riparian vegetation. I guess fortuitously, the 2016 mapping Christian mentioned, that was just, the report on that was finalized last year. We used 2016 base map, but we had field efforts by Stillwater and our collaborators in 2017 and 18 to sort of document conditions. So that gives us a nice, understanding of how the system fluctuates. And then we have the deeper evidence from the historical ecology study, plus historical aerial photographs dating from, I think, 1927 on. So we can definitely, factor that into how the system.
Did we lose you?
Bruce, I think you're muted.
Yeah, Bruce is muted.
All right, sorry, must have bumped my keyboard. So having the in-depth historical ecology effort is great because it really does help us understand sort of the physical drivers, as Christian was mentioning earlier, where are the persistent areas of rising groundwater, and what does that mean for patterns over time? And essentially, we see this dynamic shifting mosaic of the cottonwood and willow forested riparian habitats occurring in the same place, the same general location, although the details and the size of those patches will vary depending on the flood disturbance. That's probably all any more questions on that right now?
Very interesting.
It is. Happy to talk about it later sometime.
Look forward to it.
Any other questions? I'm gonna show a couple more things and then I'll let everyone go home, or at least stop listening to me, which is
too late.
Your sweet reward for all your hard work. Okay, let me get this map layers back again. So as Tim showed, you can put in wells. You can look at wells. So we can look at some trends in wells here. And I just want to show that relatively quickly. We'll just look at active wells, and then I'll set the bottom of the screen depth shallower than 200 feet. So we're trying to isolate shallow groundwater here, which is what the trees are going to depend on. And so you can go to a place and look at what the vegetation there is and look at the groundwater trends through time, which is pretty nice. So we can take this one, for example, and you can view extended details as Tim was showing you. And you can look at the groundwater levels. And here we're looking at depth. You can also look at elevation. And this goes from 2012 to 2018. And you can see that a drop in groundwater level through time and then a rise back up. And this is the wells I've looked at, the shallow wells I've looked at, we see this relatively consistency. This consistently drops along during droughts, which isn't a surprise. The recharge for the groundwater here is from the stream. And so you see a drop and then a rise. And also you can look at the relative the depth here, and it's all shallower than here. That's 11.63 feet. So at this well, which I've conveniently chosen, which is next to a patch of populace, you've had shallow groundwater within the rooting zone of these trees since 2012, which is nice. You can look at other wells, and we could go up into you would think that you would go to the drier wells and you would see that it's much deeper. Let's see if this one has data. Yes. So this one has data from 2009 through 2011. And this is an area with drier, less dense vegetation. And you can see that the groundwater levels are deeper. They're ranging between 26 feet and about 16 feet. So during the shallower years, it's within the rooting depth of that woody vegetation we see elsewhere, but it's probably a little bit deep for Baccharis, although it's sort of on the fringe. So you see sort of slightly deeper groundwater in those areas. And you can, if this tool does get released, this is a pretty fun thing to play with. I've been trying to keep myself from just staring at last night when I was preparing for this. I just kept clicking, and you just, all of a sudden, it was later in the evening than it was before I started. And I think that's sort of, I just wanted to point out how you could use this, how you could use the Stillwater mapping. Oh, one other thing I wanted to point out. So I said that we used CalVeg mapping elsewhere in the basin. So that's this data up here. And so what these are potentially phreatophytic vegetation that's sort of on the fringes. And it's a mixture in the valleys. It's a mixture of valley oaks in some places and Baccharis and other shrubs in drier places. And you'll notice that there's not a lot of groundwater data up there, and it's on the fringe of where the modeling would be. So it's not going to be a place where we'll have a lot of data to cut it out, or to decide whether or not it's groundwater dependent. But I think we will be able to do some. We'll have to do some other thinking about those areas based on our experience with this kinds of vegetation up in uplands, the degree to which they're likely connected to groundwater. And in the DWR map, they cut out a lot of this vegetation already without a lot of justification. And we're just including it here for completeness. In our next step, we'll probably use their justifications plus Bruce's experience with the vegetation in the basin to decide what to keep in and out here. And the thing the Valley Oaks will probably stay in because they're relatively deeply rooted. I see Bruce wanting to talk.
Coast live oaks.
Coast live oaks, right, okay.
Just to be clear.
Yeah, Valley Quercus lobata is very unusual in the area.
Yeah, no, this is what happens when you have a geomorphologist talk about plants. Coast live oaks. So they're much more deeply rooted. There are probably our deepest rooted plant in the basin. And so those are going to be probably left in, but these fringe areas here they'll continue. And that's all I was going to present. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
All right. Any questions for anyone? No?
Can you just turn the basin boundary on, please?
Oh, it's on. Let me make it more opaque.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
There we go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions? Any public comments? That's a lot of good information. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for listening today.
Yeah, no, there'll be more to come, I'm sure. This is just the beginning. All right, so
You're on mute, fortunately.
We lost you, Kelly.
Muted.
Buttons.
Muted.
Sorry. Okay, so that's the end of the information items. Does anyone have any future agenda items they'd like to bring up? Nope.
We got a lot going on.
We have a serious lot going on. Oh my gosh. I apologize. I've been on Zoom meetings since 1 o'clock. So I'm zoomed out. Okay, well, we'll end this meeting. Thank you everyone for the hard work and dedication for our basins. It's just really important work we're doing today. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, until the next Zoom.
Until the next one.
Okay, bye.
Good night.